How could you be so untrue? How come you do me like you do when I double do love you?
There was almost a schism in the type of places where the traditionalists, what we would call the finger in the ear guys, formed one set. The people who didn't like that wanted something more contemporary, went to other clubs. But certainly in the UK, the protest movement wasn't as big in that sense, and that's where we found a venue. And it was also the kind of series of venues, I think, where comedy started to come into it as well. So if we look at the guys that were around at the same time, like as us, people like Jesper Carrott, Billy Connolly, Tony Capstick, Mike Harding, they all started with acts as folk singers, whatever folk means, contemporary music singers. And if I look at someone like Jesper Carrott and Billy Connolly, they started off doing 20 songs in 2 half-hour sets, and slowly the songs got less and less, and the gags and the stories got more and more and more, and we were more into that kind of genre. And it's popular music, things that people enjoyed. We used to take the mick out of some of the English traditional singers who were so pretentious.
As I rode out on an intercity train from Euston Station, I chanced upon a fair maid who, intent on procreation, said, "What I have got to do is better done on a track, for intercity makes the going easy and the coming back."
I don't think any of the group was that influenced by political events. None of us were particularly political in our views or whatever. Or if we were, we kept them to ourselves.
Was there a dedicated press outlet for music in those days, or were you always in the little local newspaper?
No, I mean the two big magazines in the UK, which were weeklies, were Melody Maker and New Musical Express. They were the big ones, but they covered everything from pop music, from the Rolling Stones and the Beatles, through to small bands and small gigs across the UK. So it's, how did you get into that? How did you advertise for it or whatever?
Was it a status symbol to be able to be covered in those magazines?
Oh yes, you knew you'd kind of arrived if you got comment in there. But there's some cuttings we've got. There was one guy who used to enjoy us and followed us around several venues, and he wrote under about 5 different names. So there'd be Noel Meredith, or I can't remember one of the other ones, and it's the same guy, and you'd see him at a different gig a week later, and then it would appear in Melody Maker as 4 inches of comment.
To get back to the venue kind of thing, because we still struggle today with the idea of what's a good venue. Billy Connolly would have done well in where you were playing because people had to listen, and it lent itself to comedy and jokes and some kind of
yeah. Although we did a place, we got booked into a pub in High Wycombe in a downstairs bar, because they had this cavernous downstairs bar that held 120 people, but they never got anybody in there. So we got booked there 3 nights a week, and it was probably the best rehearsal room we'd had. And we played there 3 nights a week. And when we first went there, a few guys would drift in, have a pint, listen to a little bit, wander off, which was great because we could just play the same set 3 or 4 times a night and develop it. But by the end, our last night there, you couldn't get a seat. It was packed. We had probably 150 people crammed into that room. And that was the most magical thing, where you think, yeah, we've grown up and made all this happen. And the only way it works is by going back and actually getting all the pauses, all the timing, everything right. And if you do that, it's funny. And any good comedian does that. They rehearse their act and tell gags, and they rehearse it till they've got it perfectly. And it's just the same with the music. So it's drilled into you. It's the old maxim of a professional, an amateur practices so he can get it right, a professional practices so he can't get it wrong. It's doing what you do technically proficiently, but you don't have to show off. Because ultimately, if you are up there singing any song, you are entertaining and communicating with the audience. This is communication. That's what gives the whole experience to yourselves and to the audience. And actually, It may not be, it may be a 2-chord song, but if it gets a moment and a message across to the people you're with. I talk for a living. All right, I'm advising on technical stuff, but that's it's still when you're working with a group of trustees or a client, you're presenting, you're holding the floor, you're in command. It's no different to being on stage and commanding an audience. If you're speaking at a venue and you've got 200 delegates there, exactly the same. It's an entertainment, and you've got to entertain them. Even if it's technical entertainment, it's no different to running a guitar workshop or whatever. You're using your speciality. Same disciplines. You rehearse. Failure to prepare is to prepare to fail. All cliches, but they're all very, very true. And you practice and you get it right and you take it away and you refine it. People think I'm silly, but I can tell you I never wear the same shirt and tie and suit to 2 consecutive meetings with the same client.
If the entire Green Ginger was here, if I could magically have them here right now, and I would say, hear your instruments, play your favorite song, what would that be?
Mikhail.
You lead a gentle life. May you make a loving wife. May all your wildest dreams come true.